Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight here at the Dearborn Public Library. Glad you joined us. We'll be talking with cartoonist Harry Bliss about his wonderful new graphic memoir, You Can Never Die. First, yep, exactly. And his dog Penny. Whoops, forgot to turn my mic on. Uh, Just a quick announcement. We'll be talking with the director of the Detroit Film Theater, Elliot Wilhelm, on Tuesday, June 17th. It'll be an in-person talk, be at 6:30. You can sign up for a seat on our library website, dearbornlibrary.org. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Harry Bliss. He's a cartoonist, extraordinary. He's written many cartoons. He's a New York Times best-selling author with the comedian Steve Martin. He has the Bliss website. I'll share a bit of it before we go. But yeah, just the one as uh, Harry showed, he's we're here to talk about his new graphic memoir, and it's it's wonderful, wonderful book. You Can Never Die. So please welcome Harry Bliss.
Dan, I'll hold it up one more time.
Certainly, certainly.
I just love that little drawing of Penny.
Oh yeah, it says everything. It says everything about it. It catches your eye.
Yeah,
It just it's like uh, means everything.
yeah. People connect to it and the title too, because if you're a dog or a pet owner, that's always in the back of your mind is please don't die.
Well, what kind of dog was Penny?
Penny was a mini poodle, a scruffy little I like to say she looked like a little scruffy Jerry Garcia, apricot color. But yeah, very sweet little mini poodle. Great temperament, just a joy, our de facto baby for many years.
Well, I've always heard that poodles are very smart. Was
Very smart. Yes, very smart.
so, uh, yeah. How did you come up with the idea for this book?
Well, the idea came from just journaling. That's I was journaling over the grief. Yeah, I didn't realize it would hit me that hard. You know, I told someone else that recently Penny was the first being that I ever truly loved in a very deep way. Now I'm married and I have a son, so there's that. But it's different with animals, for at least it is for me. There's a visceral connection and it's inexplicable, but it was there. And my way of kind of dealing with the loss after 17 years of, being with this dog was to write about it, to journal about it, as frank and as honest as I could. And what happened in the process of that was I began kind of unearthing stories about my life. So the sort of grieving about Penny became kind of an anchor for all the other things that happened throughout the course of 3 years. But it was the reason for the book was I wanted to connect to people. I wanted to put something out there. Yeah, I felt so strongly about it, about the emotional element that I had, that I felt somewhat compelled to connect with people, to readers.
Well, you don't have a traditional introduction in the book. You have an intention.
Yeah, it is
It's,
I called it an intention. Yeah.
and you talk about your desire to connect with people. Is that
Yeah.
the same like with the book and also for your work?
I think so. I think absolutely. I think that I call it in the intention, I call it the intimacy, because I get that when I read books on occasion. I will find that the author will come through to me, and I'll have a certain intimacy with that author, and whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Um, oh, I have to turn my. I don't even know how to do this. I don't know how to silence my computer.
Uh,
Hey Siri, turn Do Not Disturb on.
yeah, we're not here. We're not hearing any feedback, I guess, for
Oh,
like.
right. It was just a little ping, and I got rid. I think that'll do it. So yeah, the intimacy. I was talking about intimacy, and I think it's I think having intimacy with anyone, is pretty rare. At least in my experience. But I wanted that. But it's kind of it was my abstract for the book was for the reader to find intimacy with me.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, or at least my experience is, yeah, you don't achieve intimacy with everybody, much as you desire it.
Yeah.
You make connections with some people,
Yes.
a certain group of people.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, uh, how did you develop as a cartoonist? How did you, what was the why did you decide to go into cartooning?
Well, I was trained well, both of my parents met in art school. So my mom and dad were students at the Philadelphia Museum School of Art in the late 50s. My dad was on a GI Bill, and my mom came from Hollywood. So I had three uncles, one, two, who were artists. There must be 10 of us in my immediate family, and cousins and sister and brothers, and who were all very artistic, and some of us making a living at it. So um, I went to art school with the intent of becoming a painter. I went to Philadelphia, the same art school my parents went to, became a little disenchanted with the program at that school, mostly because most of what I learned, I had already known everything from my parents. My art education, at the Philadelphia College of Art, um, was kind of superfluous. So I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, and I wanted to study painting. And I had no intention of becoming a cartoonist. I was waiting tables and painting and going into the instructors' studios, because they had studios at the academy. I think they still do. Um, but many years later, after I was working as an illustrator, my first job after I got out of the restaurant business in 1996, was illustrating book covers, which was a great job. I was an illustrator for, many, many mysteries out there.
Well, yeah, you talk about and give an example of how you drew up an advertisement. I I forget for what in the
Yeah.
book, and
Yeah. Widmer Wines. Yeah.
yeah, wines, and
My dad got me that gig. Hmm.
it shows how the kinds of things illustrators do other than
Hmm.
traditional outlets.
Yeah. There's not enough time, but I did business cards. I did a little illustration for a football team, the Philadelphia Stars. It was an off-season football team, and it's just, I would take any gig to make rent, basically. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
yeah.
But and you whether I forget whether it's in a book or in a talk I've heard from about you that you said cartooning is the hardest thing you can type of art, I guess, for lack of a better.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I write in the book, I there's a kind of interview with Terry Gross excerpt. And this I put that in there because people have asked me over the years, they've looked at my kind of realistic work, some of my oil paintings and watercolors, and before I started cartooning, and said, you know, you could have been a fine artist, and but you chose to be a cartoonist. Why didn't you just become a fine artist? And my answer is always because cartooning is far more difficult than painting portraits. It's just to draw like that every single day and to have your brain constantly working and coming up with ideas, new ways on to have mirth for old tropes. You know, the guy in the desert island, you know, the Grim Reaper, you know, so. And if you look at the great New Yorker cartoonists, Peter Arno, Charles Adams, even Roz Chast, I think, is a terrific draftsperson. You know, they can all draw really well, and they draw all the time. And I can be a little critical of fine artists because they don't draw nearly as beautifully as as a good cartoonist. It's my opinion. I just happen to be right, but
Well, yeah, I could understand how uh, you need to be precise. You need to,
well, it's a language. And there's, again, I quote James Stevenson in the book, you never really fully understand anything until you draw it. And I'm paraphrasing that quote, but it's really, it's just you're constantly drawing. So you're constantly studying everything around you. A car, a table, your dog, your cat. It doesn't stop. And at a certain point, there was a teacher I had at the academy who said, you achieve a certain freedom where you can make anything up from your mind. And for the most, except for horses, I can't draw horses, but I can pretty much draw anything that I think. And I don't think a lot of fine artists can do that.
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
get in trouble if I keep, talking badly about I'm
yeah.
talking
Let's
about
leave it at
living
that.
fine artists. Now, you take somebody like Toulouse-Lautrec or uh, Georgia O'Keeffe or you name it, Daumier. You can go back to Delacroix and all the great. They were sublime, you know. But contemporary art, there are some people I follow on Instagram who I think are terrific, but for the most part, I'm not a fan of contemporary fine art.
No, for ideas for your cartoons or what you draw. Uh, I mean, uh, you talk about studying uh, pretty much anything, uh, and I guess where you get the ideas.
Yeah.
I can, for myself, I'll see something or hear a word or something, and I'll make a connection with something else.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
for like programs like this or
Mhm.
some other stuff that I do. Is that the same kind of, do you have the same
Yeah, I think
approach?
so. Yeah. I mean, there are two ways it happens. I just finished Moby Dick. I'd read it half-heartedly about 20 years ago, and I just reread it, and I'll probably read it again. But in the course of reading that, I had a cartoon idea that I drew up, and I probably have here in front of me. It hasn't been published yet. And oh, here it is. So it's basically a drawing of Ahab, and he's sort of stuck to Moby Dick with the harpoon lines, and he says, "For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee. Will thou not at last, saith uncle." So it's an example of a lot of ideas come from books that I read. And I'm a huge fan of the New York Review of Books.
Okay.
I adore this publication, and I read these. A lot of the essays in there will kind of spawn ideas. But the other way that ideas come are, well, Steve Martin, he'll give me ideas, but I will draw. I'll just start drawing a tree and see where it goes, and drawing a dog next to the tree, or just create some landscape or something that makes me happy, and then I'll imagine a narrative that is the reason for the image, and then that will inform a caption or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. You could come up with the caption from what's happening in the drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another, this is from my journal, my diary, well, in my journal I draw on this. This is also the Captain Ahab. That's the very rough version right there. And below it, there's a variation of that. It has Captain Ahab in bed with Moby Dick. And and Captain Ahab says, Starbuck won't believe it. So you can see that, but this is just, they're filled with drawings, and this is a recent one. So
Well, seeing your journal is uh, did you add were there journal pages in the book?
yeah, there are a lot. In fact, the book is filled with journal pages. It's in fact, we had to curate this. So I wanted the book to be really unlike. So here's an example of, there's a journal page on the right, and there's the end of a story here on the left. But I had to sort of curate this with my son and his partner. These are two journal pages as well from the book. But there are essays, and the cartoons go with the essays, and then the journal pages kind of echo the essays in some way. So it's very difficult to curate the book, to put it together.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I got the sense in reading books that sometimes you tried to set up the journal pages or to show where the ideas or where
Exactly.
the essay came from.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yes.
So,
Yep. Yeah.
and-
That's nice to hear you say that.
well, I was just curious. I was just the idea was like, oh, did he do that? So I made a note of that,
Yeah.
wanting to ask you.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but uh, how long was it easy to put the book together, or
No,
did
it was very difficult. The book is 400 pages, and it initially was 550. And we had to lose 150 pages. Um, I'm 61 and I've done a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of material. There are stories. There was a story with James Gandolfini that did make it in here. There was another story about, there are more mafia stories. I have quite a few mafia stories because I worked in South Philly. I lived and worked in South Philadelphia in the 80s and 90s. And I knew mafia guys, and but I didn't get to tell some of those stories. And it's probably good that I did.
probably wise this kind of do.
Most of them are dead, so.
Well, yeah, that's but yeah, you're very frank about in many of your stories about your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I thought about that. I mean, there are essays in the book that when you write a book, you have to copy edit it, so you have to reread it. And I had to keep rereading these essays. And there's one about me bullying, and it really upset me every time I read it, because I still kind of hate that part of me, in my past. There are memories of there's drug use that I'm not particularly proud of. um, The Loss of Penny. Uh, those essays to read would bring me to tears every time. So I knew that if I was going to connect with people, if I was going to have some sort of intimacy with the reader, I had to lay it all out there. It didn't make sense to not be honest. So that's what I did.
Yeah, this I was listening to the talk you did with today with Vermont Radio, and
Mm,
it said the phrase that stays in my mind is honesty begets honesty.
yeah, yeah,
If you're straight with people, uh, people will be straight with you,
yeah, yeah.
and you can connect with them. They can
That's
relate to it.
that's exactly what happens with the some of the book signings I've had that happen. People would come up to me and it's kind of emotional, especially when we talk about the bond between our pets and losing pets. And, I feel their pain. Um, yeah, it's hard not to hug everybody.
Yeah. Um, your new dog, Junior, and I will say an Australian Shepherd, that's quite a,
Yeah.
talk about an active dog.
Yeah, he's stacked out right next to me here. He's a great dog. And it's interesting. He's not for an Aussie Shepherd, he needs two like serious outings every day. But he's very kind of, I always say somebody said this. I think my wife said it, or my stepdaughter Delia said that he's the Timothy Chalamet of dogs.
Oh, geez.
He's just great. He's a beautiful dog, and he's just super sweet. He's not an alpha dog in any way, but I love him. I love him so much. So it's going to be. That's the thing when you have pets. You know it's coming. It's coming again. So, and someone else, I think, on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, and somebody posted something about the memoir. They liked it, and they said that they had just lost their dog. And I said, I mentioned something about uh, part of the healing process. And then I thought about it and I said, you really don't heal from it. It's a wound. It's a wound that you just learn to live with. And yeah, it doesn't heal, losing a pet or losing anything that you love that deeply is just, yeah, you accumulate wounds in your life and you learn to live with them.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel on occasion feel the pain of losing my grandfather.
Hmm.
My wife feels the loss of her. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just how learning, finding some way to remember them,
Hmm.
finding some
Yes.
way to honor them or to
Yeah.
do something. Uh,
Yeah.
after such, was there any specific reason that you got Junior after losing Penny?
Well, yeah. My wife, her mom, my mother-in-law, had a stroke. So my wife at the time, just after we lost Penny, um, her mom had a stroke. So she had to go back and forth from Burlington, Vermont to Mystic, Connecticut. And I was alone. I was in Cornish, New Hampshire, working by myself. And I started to really miss companionship. And there was a local neighbor, a good friend of mine in Cornish, who had a litter of Aussie Shepherds. And I went over one day, and Junior is the name of my dog. And Junior looked at me and just connected, totally just came up to me as a little puppy, and that was it. I was done. So,
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
yeah, that was it, you know. And yeah, he's 2.5 years old. And but I was missing that. I'll have a dog for the rest of my life. I think I just because I really enjoy their company. They
Yeah,
make me a better, they make me better, a better person. So I feel,
yeah, that's cool. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, it just is it's if it's something you can look at and say, hey, I want to be better. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, well, they opened somebody in the. I talked to a friend of mine in the book, and his name's Dan, and Dan said it's a heart-opening exercise to spend that much time with a dog and to get to know a dog in that way. And I thought that was a very nice. I love the way he said it's a heart opening. The heart opening. I thought that was sweet. I believe that that's true.
Well, you mentioned working with Steve Martin for the two books.
Yep.
How did that come about?
Well, it came about because his wife, Anne, used to be a fact checker at the New Yorker. So they were having dinner, and I think my cover editor was there. And he mentioned to her that he, on occasion, will have cartoon ideas. And she said, well, I know a cartoonist who loves to collaborate. And she gave him my email address, and that was it. We just started back and forth emailing each other. And yeah, it's like 7 years ago. I was thinking about that the other day. We're still, we're still doing stuff. So
Oh,
yeah.
do you think there'll be another book in the offing?
Yeah, we have enough for another book. We have to find the time to sit down and curate that, go through all the cartoons and pick out the really good ones or the ones that we like. So
Okay. And uh, you started an artist fellowship,
I did, yeah.
Cornish.
Yep.
Did you want to talk about it?
Yeah. Well, years ago, I think it was in 2008, I was awarded the Maurice Sendak Fellowship along with Nora Krug, Krug. She's a great, great graphic novelist and writer. So we were both on Sendak's farm in upstate New York and outside of Saratoga for 6 weeks. And I was so inspired by that, that whole, my whole time there, that years later, well, 8 years later, when I bought the house in New Hampshire, in Cornish, it's 12 acres of land, and there's this little separate apartment. It used to be J.D. Salinger's house, so the separate apartment is where Salinger used to kind of go and write. And it just seemed like a great place for a residency for someone to come and work in the beautiful stillness of this kind of magical bucolic place. And I partnered with the Center for Cartoon Studies in White River Junction, which is just about 25 minutes away in Vermont. And we came up with this fellowship that we award a graphic novelist every year. We give them $3,000 and they come and they basically live next door to me in the garage apartment. And I take them to places or they stay by themselves. And I think we've had 7 or 8 so far. And they come from all over the country and they apply every year. And it's been super rewarding. Just great. Yeah. They get to know Junior.
And is a great way to connect and network and stuff.
Well, the idea for the fellowship was, well, I'm so deeply rooted to Cornish. I love it so much there. As you can, I mean, if you read the memoir, you'll know that I wanted to share it. And I didn't care, I don't, I didn't care what they did there. I just wanted a gifted cartoonist, graphic novelist who was selected, who had worked very hard, and I wanted to reward them and say, here, you can live here and experience God's country. And here's some walking around money. And you can sleep all the time. You can spend the whole month reading. I just wanted to reward that person. And most of them come and they're working on something. Part of the application process is they submit what they're working on. So, but they don't have to work on it when they're there. Like,
Well, yeah, that was my next question. What is it about nature in this, for example, Cornish, that
Mm.
it's really that you like.
Well, I think as I age, I become far more curious about everything. Um, the first draw was the quiet. Um, I don't hear leaf blowers. I don't hear cars. I don't hear really any other sounds that humans make. No engines, just nature, just birds. Um, I made friends with a chipmunk. That's in the memoir too. I named him Carl, but I'm not sure. I'm just I have over my life have just become deeply connected to nature. I'm not sure why. I mean, uh, but I will in the winter. I'll go out in the middle of the night. Well, middle of the night meaning 1 in the morning in the snow. It's the best time to go in the snow in the woods. And that's you have to understand. If you look at a Maxfield Parrish painting and look at one of his landscapes, that's where I live. He lived 5 minutes from me in Cornish. But it's so beautiful to walk on that snow and to see the moon illuminating the snow. It's transcendent. It's just, and it's free.
Well, I imagine you could see the stars
Oh
actually.
my God, yes. So many stars. Um, it's it's euphoric. It really is. It fills me with awe. Um, Nature fills me with awe. Now, I could get the same awe, and I do on occasion, if I walk into a Walmart. It's a different kind of awe, but it's there.
Well, uh, you you've illustrated many children's books, uh, and uh, did you want to talk about that?
Um, let's talk about it. Well, I've done 25, I think, roughly. I had a good run there doing children's books. It's a lot of work though, and I've become far less ambitious. I'd rather go for a walk in the woods than being hunched over my desk, working on a watercolor spread for a children's book. Um, I've kind of been there, done that. I worked with Katie Camillo and Sharon Creech and Doreen Cronin and so many fantastic, writers. I got to know Maurice Sendak and yeah, I'm too lazy, so no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I had the most fun doing children's books was going to the elementary schools and talking to the children. When you have a room full of 500 elementary school kids laughing or cheering or being very quiet while I'm drawing something up there, uh, that's also a very unique experience that I really miss, you know.
Well, who were your influences? I know it's uh, from reading the book, it sounds like Maurice Sendak, of course,
Hmm.
but who else really?
There's so many. I mean, my parents turned us on to, there's really too many. I mean, by the time I was 12, I was familiar with all of the Impressionists. I knew Gauguin, Van Gogh, Picasso, Toulouse-Lautrec, Modigliani. I was infatuated with the whole school of Paris. It went on from there. By 14, I was a huge fan of Anselm Kiefer, who was a kind of obscure German painter who's far more well known today. I loved Mark Rothko. I was all over the place. So there's too many and I loved cartoonists. I loved Bernie Wrightson and Mike Ploog, these Marvel comic artists. And my parents didn't distinguish between highbrow and lowbrow art. So, you know, we didn't look down on comic book art. We saw comic book art as just as important or just as beautiful as Renoir, who, if you read the book, I I find is a very mediocre painter.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talk about meeting Andrew Wyeth. Uh,
Yes. Yeah, that was I met Andrew, Andy and Betsy and Chad's Ford and spent 2 solid hours with those guys. And it was a remarkable, and this is another reason why I wrote the book. Certain things I wanted to put down. I write in the book that, and the reason I keep a journal is because I want to remember my life. I can pick up a journal and go back and read about Andrew Wyeth and my time there, and it will come back to me. I will recall it with a certain amount of clarity. And if I didn't write it down, I wouldn't remember it. And I do that with dreams too. I will write my dreams out if I remember them, and I'll draw them too. Um, but it is a, some would say it's a bit of a pathetic clinging to your life. You want to hold on to this life that you've had and that you continue to live.
well, to me, it's more like you treasure those moments and you want
Mhm.
to remember as much detail as you can.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, writing about, and it's funny, you can do that if you like, if I can write a shorthand in my journal, a bit of a shorthand, right? And I could go back to that and revisit it and then remember with more clarity. And then I can sort of pull out of that like an essay or a longer version that is far more accurate and nuanced. But again, if I had not put that shorthand down in the beginning, there wouldn't be those triggers for the memory. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, you sort of set the duck, I guess.
yeah,
And then, or at least I've found that as time goes on, other memories will trip other memories and the details will come out.
yes, yeah,
Something, again, back to the creativity, something innocuous will, some smell or something
yeah,
will come back, bring back the memories.
yeah. Isn't that crazy? The smell for me is always fresh cut grass. It'll take me right back to childhood 1971, walking down the street, or certain smells. Yeah. Well, the mind is absolutely fascinating. The human brain. I'm not smart enough to be like a neurologist, but I love Oliver Sacks, and I wish I had gotten to know him. I love his books, but I think the study of the human brain would have been just really cool.
Oh, it's fascinating to me too.
Yeah,
Just to yeah, just something so small can
yeah,
be so much, control so much.
yeah. It's like the universe in right here.
Yeah, our own little computer.
Yeah.
And then final question. You talk, well, I always kind of like to ask this, and especially with you, because you express enjoyment from libraries. What do you
Hmm.
read now?
Right now, I'm reading Edith Wharton. I'm reading Age of Innocence, which I've never read. I just went through a big Patricia Highsmith roller coaster, read a whole bunch of her books. I read a Stephen King book not that long ago that I hadn't called Billy Summers, which I hadn't read before. What else? My mom, when you read the memoir, my mom passed away. She had dementia. But my mom was a voracious reader and she just loved libraries. So she left me in her will all of her books. So I've been going through my mom's books, and she was born and raised in Southern California. And she was a master gardener. So there's some, and she had amazing taste in prose. she was so smart. So I'm going through a lot of her books, and there's one woman who was a Southern California writer. She had a farm and she rode horses. Jean Van Heuen, I think her name, Heuen. Anyway, yeah, there's I just reread Farewell My Lovely, Raymond Chandler, and
Oh,
Moby Dick too. So I
cool.
generally go for the dead authors.
Well, they're dead or not, they're
And
usually
Helen Wybrow is a local author. She wrote a book called The Salt. Oh, but Helen Wybrow. She's a Vermont author. She wrote a terrific memoir that I like. Oh, and there's another guy who wrote, a French author. He wrote a book about his Bernese mountain dog. It's called Ubak and Me. And someone in France got my memoir and sent me the book from France, and I read it and I loved it.
cool. Yeah, thanks for those ideas, reading ideas. These
Yeah.
are fascinating. I wanted to share your screen, your site here. So let me get here and share. Okay, yep. And so give people a sense of your work.
Yeah, all the cartoons are there. Oh, look at that. There's the little memoir one right there with the little squirrel.
Yes,
Winnie the Pooh, yes.
yeah. So, and the your okay.
You can, if you go back up, you can click to the no, the cursor's not there. It is. I think if you go to Bliss cartoons,
Okay.
we can they're all
Oh
there.
yeah,
There's
here we
so
go.
many. It's ridiculous. It's like, I think I've done 6,000 in the past 20 some years.
Wow. Yeah.
You'll see though, there are many dogs. And there's one, Steve Martin did that one with the cat and the dog, on the left. And the dog is
Oh
a waiter.
yeah.
Yeah, that one. If you click on that, the cat says, "The brook trout, please. Remove the head. I'd like to bat it around." Steve sent me that. I sent him the drawing and he gave me the caption and it really made me laugh.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I just yeah. It's you want it. I mean, it's I. It's funny. It's great. I really enjoy your work.
Thank you. And you can see the kind of you can see the academy, the sort of academic my education. It's clearly, I mean, you can see a lot of 19th century landscapes in my work, and you can see a lot of trees. I adore trees. So you'll see a lot of dogs and trees and landscapes.
Well, yeah, the detail work in that the bark
Yeah.
that must have been a lot of work.
You'd be surprised. It's not that much work. They take me about 2 hours to draw.
Okay.
They're not that big. They're like 6 inches square. And I've
Okay.
been doing it for a long time.
So those prints are available for purchase?
Yeah, sometimes people will buy a print and or people can just go on the site and just laugh and have fun
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at the
exactly.
yeah, and there's I like Instagram too because I share things daily. I will share, like today I wrote something. I think it was, or maybe it was yesterday I wrote something. Um, which is fun. It's a nice way to connect with people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's move on to the Q&A part of the talk. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Do you have any relationships with cartoonists like Charles Schultz? I know he's dead, but
Yes, I've dug up his grave many times. I'm actually glad you asked that. I grew up loving Charles Schulz and loving Peanuts. And I still love Peanuts. It's one of the greatest comic strips ever, in my opinion. And again, getting back to um, the ability, his drawing ability. Uh, I can't tell you how difficult it is to draw a perfect Charlie Brown circle head with a pen and ink. Try it sometime. It's very, very hard to do. But yeah, he was a huge influence on me. And as a kid, primarily just because there were no adults in that comic strip. Those kids were damn responsible. They looked after each other, and I really connected with that.
Well, all right, let's look on line here. Well, somebody is asking, will we ever see the excised pages, the 150 missing pages?
Well, I'll have to make back my advance on this book. So I would love to do another memoir because there are plenty of the thing about this memoir, this one, like I said, it's autobiographical as well. But in the course of the memoir, this book, I should say, things happened that I didn't plan. Both my parents passed away. I lost my dog. Um, I didn't anticipate writing all these autobiographical pieces, and I didn't really plan to make a book. But now that I've done it, um, and I'm happy with it, I think when I got the book in the mail and I looked through it, and it was very difficult to put it together. It took a great deal of work. When I got the book in the mail and I looked through it and I read the whole thing again, I felt really good about it. I felt like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to do. But that said, I do want to do another one, and it probably won't be as sad. I think it will be a little more uplifting. Um, I don't know if that'll happen. We'll see. Like I said before, my ambition is really waned. I'd much rather sit down in the lazy boy with the dog, a little glass of red wine, and watch an old Billy Wilder movie.
Sounds good to me. Question?
Did you paint that picture behind you?
No, that is painted. You have a very good eye. That's painted by Warren Shepherd. It's a fantastic. Here, can I show it to you?
Yeah.
I'm a big art collector, and I got this for a great price. And he's a really terrific 19th century painter. I wish I'd painted that. I can't. I'm not that good. I can't. Oil painting is very difficult, I find.
Yeah.
Did you name Penny?
I'm sorry?
How was Penny named?
How was Penny named?
Or how did you come up with the name?
My wife came up with Penny's name. I met my wife when Penny was about 6 months old, and her name is Penelope.
Oh.
And she called her Penny. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to find if the opening of the book is one of my favorite drawings that I've done of Penny, if you can see that. She's such a beautiful creature. Yeah, she's just yeah, I love her so much.
Yeah. Yeah. One more question here from online. I think the highs and lows of your life have made you like the sensitive soul that you are, which you express in humor and insightful posts. Would you prefer to be thought of for one or the other?
One or being one, which of the one or what are those two things?
The sensitive highs and lows of your life have made you the sensitive soul, which you express in humor and insightful posts. would you,
The higher
I
lows,
guess
like,
humor or insightful, maybe, that's what I'm taking.
well, you know what, I appreciate that question, and I think that there's humor buried in all of it, and there's sadness buried in the humor. Um, yeah, I think that if you not in all of my cartoons, but a lot of the cartoons I feel are they're kind of nuanced. And there's a sweetness to the way that I draw animals and I respond to animals. And I respond to um the way a man will interact. I just did a cartoon with a dog and a man. Let me see if I have the drawing here. I can show it to you really quickly. Here it is. Penny has passed on, but I'm able to I still draw her in cartoons, so it's a nice way to keep her alive. But it basically has this man, and he's giving his dog a high five. It's raining outside, and the man says, "Looks like it's a Laurel and Hardy extra blankets on the couch with Dad Day. High five." Now, this isn't like a haha funny cartoon. It's really a sweet cartoon that is directly related to my life or the way that I wish my life could be on any given day. I wish Penny were alive, and I wish that I could spend the day watching Laurel and Hardy movies with her on a rainy day. So in that sense, the cartoon can be high and low, I think.
Well, that brings up to my mind the phrase, write what you know. The-
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but then you also want to write what you don't know, or tr at least try to, because if you write what you know, then you don't really find out anything new, do you? So like,
True, you could be so subjective that you can't, no one could relate to it.
yeah, yeah. I think Annie Proulx said that once. She was like, she had reservations about that, write what you know, because sometimes, yes, I think starting out writing what you know, but then sometimes do some figures, learn something. That's why drawing is so great, because you can draw something that you don't know anything about it. And then you draw it and you're like, oh, so that's how the wrench works. I didn't know that. So when you draw something, you learn the anatomical Platonian ideal of the thing. So it can be very rewarding. Anyway, we're getting off sidetracked.
Well, yeah, yeah. So I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. For um, uh, yeah, thank you for joining us. So I really enjoyed the book. See, yeah, I'll get it.
Well, I love libraries and I love what you do. And I know there's an essay in the book on library, on the Sperry Library, my high school library. And libraries saved my life. So I'm so grateful for librarians and libraries. I may they outlive everything else on the planet.
Yeah.
Libraries and cockroaches. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a cartoon.
Well, okay, yeah, library, cockroach in the library. So, well, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
It
Thank you
was,
so much.
uh, your book is available on many independent booksellers, Amazon, all the usual places. It's quite something, and it really uh, uh, gets into you're honest, and
Yeah.
that's that's why it's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome. Cheers.